Yo, what's good, Knicks Nation? Alex Trataros here, a.k.a. the Tratacaster, back with the check-in. We're doing another Game of the Week matchup this week. It's the New York Knicks at the Brooklyn Nets. And with me is none other than Matt Brooks. You can go find his work over at Nets Daily. You can go find him covering the Nets over at the Clear Out podcast, also part of the Blue Wire Network. And you can also find some of his other NBA content over at Basketball News. Matt, what's going on, man? How are you feeling today?
Good. Very good. Stoked for this game we got coming up Wednesday, recording today, I guess it's Tuesday. So I'm thrilled. It's been nice to just kind of like talk a little bit of basketball, because Lord knows there's been a lot of that this year on this side of things.
Hey, man, we were talking about before stage, covering the Nets is a little difficult right now. I feel you, man. Being a Knicks fan for so long, we always know about the New York Knicks being, on the tabloids, some sort of controversy. As a Knicks fan, it's nice to see that it's on the other side of the bridge now. So thank you for your service covering this team and for taking the drama away from Madison Square Garden over to the Barclays Center. Appreciate it.
I wish I had known that when I started doing this. I was covering like the D'Angelo Russell, Joe Harris, Spencer
that was fun
Dinwiddie,
times.
Jared Allen. I had no idea what was going to happen. So here I am as the worthy sacrifice, I guess, after all these years.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Here we are indeed. And we got a matchup, as I noted, tomorrow, because we're recording right now, Tuesday at 1:56 p.m., November 8th. Well, let me ask you a few questions about this team going before we get into that matchup and breaking it down a little bit. What are your thoughts about this team so far, man? How you feel? You all right? You doing okay over there in Brooklyn? Everything okay?
I'm trying. I almost sighed. I almost did it again. Yeah, there it is. The sigh of just defeat. Look, I think we all know it's been quite the year over here. Feels like we're in game 40. We're in game 12. So it's the typical Nets experience during the Kyrie KD era. No, man. I mean, it's weird. I kind of feel like it's sort of like deja vu to last year, where Kyrie Irving is absent. Not sure if he's going to be coming back anytime soon. Last year was for vaccine issues. This year, obviously, the documentary that he posted on his social media channels. We'll see. I don't even know if he's going to be a part of the team going forward. And what that means is that Kevin Durant is just sort of leading the pack by himself with a bunch of young players, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, and they're just kind of figuring it out. And they've actually looked pretty good the last 3 games. Granted, 2 of those games are against Washington and Charlotte. Charlotte just being a disaster this year. You can take what you want from that, but they played Dallas yesterday on Monday, and looked pretty good the whole time. So I do think there's a little bit of a sense of identity for the Nets right now, which is impressive given so many things have happened so far. And I think because of that, I do expect this to be a pretty fun matchup. I actually think these 2 teams are potentially fairly evenly matched. We'll see. I mean, Durant's playing out of his mind, but I do think we're in for a pretty good show.
For sure. Absolutely. But, it's been interesting what the Nets have gone through. You talked about Kyrie Irving, which throws the Nets all in disarray because you're losing one of your 2 stars for we don't know how long as of right now. But they also had Steve Nash. He was fired. That's also a big change. So you got Vaughn back there coaching the Nets again. I remember him coaching the Nets in the bubble as well. What are your thoughts on Nash being fired, man? Do you think he was a scapegoat in this situation? Do you think he was appropriately fired? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think they should have done it in the summer if you're going to plan to do it. And I do kind of wonder, like, when the Ime thing, when it happened in Boston and he got suspended for a year, I wonder if that had an effect on them saying, well, let's just keep Nash around, or maybe that's not correct, but let's at least keep him for the first couple games as we sort of feel this out. And I do wonder if that affected the timing of all this, because if you look at it on paper, it looks crazy. To get swept by the Celtics, and you have Kyrie and KD, and you have this head coach that it's been pretty up and down, especially the second year. The first year is kind of whatever. He's a rookie head coach. Second year, they go on this huge losing streak in January. with once like KD gets hurt and it's like everybody's looking around like, all right, like I get that you're losing Durant, but to lose whatever it was, 11, 12 games in a row, like that should be a red flag to just about anybody. And then they get swept in the playoffs. You'd think, all right, there's a championship team. This is not a great look. Wonder if they're going to make the move. They didn't do it. And then they made it within 7 games. It just, I think the timeline kind of looks odd, but I will say they're playing hard under Vaughn. Vaughn just like, he's you listen to his, and again, pressers kind of mean nothing at the end of the day, but he knows his hoops. He talks a lot about, certain details, whether it's gapping or how attentive their low men were, like terms that you just didn't hear from Nash as much. And I think that he so far, I mean, it's a very limited sample, 2 very different groups, but young guys seem to play really hard for him. We saw that in the bubble, and we're seeing that right now. And I think that stuff does matter for wherever the Nets go, because by the way, there's no guarantee that this team as it stands is going to be the team that we see at the end of the year in Brooklyn Nets jerseys. Cause I just don't know. There's a lot of moving pieces right now. And let's be honest, it doesn't seem like the Nets are a championship contender right now. So if you know that and you have Kevin Durant playing at this level, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and say, hey, maybe they see what they can get back for KD. But in the meantime, I actually do think Vaughn has been really good for this group. You just want a guy that are going to get players to play hard, which has just not been the case for the last 2 years.
No, I get you, man. And, that's kind of like what the Knicks had as struggles last season, where you had certain players, especially most of our youth, playing up to that challenge, right? They were playing tough every single night. And then, for Julius Randle, our guy who was second all NBA, was an all-star, was getting MVP chance. He regressed last season. He's playing all right now. He's been playing better, playing into the team environment as of right now. Still has some inefficiencies. We saw like last week, but last night shot very well against the Timberwolves. So his 3-ball was falling last night. But I understand of like having coaches, like not necessarily put up their expectations. Your team's just kind of in flux right now. We saw that last season as well. But you also got another player on there. We've been talking about Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. There's Ben Simmons too. We talk about you're essentially went from having, I guess, a big 3 to a big 2. Is Ben Simmons still within that big 3? What's going on with Ben Simmons over there with Brooklyn?
I think it's hilarious that I just left that out. We're however many minutes in right now, and I just was like, oh yeah, Ben Simmons on the team. He just hasn't like played a ton, and it's been not great. I think is probably a good place to start. He has not looked comfortable within really anything the Nets have been doing, even in things that you'd expect him to kind of make an impact on, I guess, like point of attack defense, rebounding. He just hasn't looked, he just hasn't made an impact really at all. So that I think is troubling. And of all the things that have gone wrong for the Nets, it's getting swept under the rug because there's Kyrie, there's the coaching change, but it has not been good so far. And I'm worried. It's hard to tell if it's a mental thing, if it's just a blockade for him that is scared of getting fouled or, is scared of driving to the rim. But it's strange that it's affecting the things that he's normally been historically really good at in terms of his defense, in terms of, his rebounding. And that's where I start to wonder, hey, is this a physical thing? Is he 100%? Is this going to be a while until he fully gets his athleticism back, his vertical pop back, as he's coming back from back surgery? So it's been troubling so far. He has not looked good, and they've been a definitive minus when he's on the floor. Even yesterday against Dallas, it's like they put the perfect lineup around him. Hypothetically, I think it was like Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, I want to say like Yuta Watanabe, and maybe one other player. It could have been Seth Curry. And it's like this, hypothetically, this is all we've ever wanted for Ben Simmons, is like, let's put 4 shooters around him and see where it goes. And it's like, it's kind of the offense is stuck in the mud, and you have Royce O'Neal being the lead creator and, driving into the paint and making plays versus Ben Simmons. So it's like, that even is like, we have this idea of what Ben Simmons could be. It just hasn't really come to fruition.
Okay. So how's the team feeling about Ben Simmons? Is he getting support from the team, like the coaching? What's the whole, because we all know how he exited Philly. You come over to Brooklyn, he's expected to make an impact. You have him, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. You're theoretically, that's supposed to be a powerful team, a powerful big three that you got right there. So is the team, bought in on him? Is the team feeling that he's gonna pick it up at some point? What's your whole thoughts on that?
I mean, I think they're saying the right things publicly. We have to be patient. He's coming back from a big layoff. It's early. This team, like, let's see them hit adversity. Let's see them get to the playoffs and, and struggle. And if he doesn't play well, then I'm like, all right, then we know what time it is, because that's, I mean, first, I don't even know if they get to the playoffs with the squad they have right now. Again, that's the weirdest part about covering the Nets right now is I'm like, this team could be Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton at the end of the year, and that would be it. I don't know. I just don't know.
I'm sorry. Finish your thought, and I'll ask the question.
Yeah, essentially, just it's really early right now, and they're going to be patient with it. But we've already had I think Woj had a report on ESPN this week about Durant and some of the other players are frustrated with Ben not being able to stay on the floor. Like, it's already sort of happening, and he was kind of the obvious, I don't want to say fall guy because he's not playing well, but in a sense he also is the obvious fall guy because there's a history of that, and this team is, there's always something going on, and there's not a ton of accountability all the time, I would say.
Gotcha. So you're telling me right now that you're thinking the net, because you're saying you wouldn't be surprised if it's Cam Thomas, the Cam Thomas show at some point. So you're thinking the Nets would be sellers and not buyers. Really?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so let's put it like this. So let's say Kyrie never plays again for the Nets. I think that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. He's got a whole laundry list of things that he needs to fulfill for the team before he comes back. I mean, at this point, like, I'm not in the business of predicting anything. I'm certainly not in the business of predicting what happens with Kyrie Irving. Like, at this point, I don't know. So if he doesn't come back, then your team is Kevin Durant. It's hopefully something from Ben Simmons. And then what else? It's like Royce O'Neal or Joe Harris is your third best player. And it's like KD's 34. He's playing about as good as he's played in Brooklyn. He's putting up 25 plus every single night. Where's that team going? Like, and you need to have that moment of truth with yourself as a franchise. And the Nets, by the way, I don't know if they're the team to do that. This is like a team that's consistently drunk on hope, drunk on this idea that things are going to work out. And it's like, when has that ever happened? Like, not just with this era, but historically, that just is not what happens with this team. So yeah, there's like, I don't know if they're going to get there. And I would say, from my standpoint, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, I think the window's closed. I think it's done. I don't know what you can really, what are you going to get? What guy are you going to get that's going to move the needle? Because I don't think Ben Simmons has trade value like right now. You're certainly not going to get anything for Kyrie Irving. So then it's like, where are we going? It's KD and role players, and I don't know. He's 34. I don't think they're going anywhere. So yeah, I think if he gets hurt, or even if they just go through a little skid, he gets a little unhappy, especially if the Nets move on from Kyrie. I would not be shocked if we hear stuff about KD being unhappy, wanting to get traded, or if the team's just like, let's just get what we can get. And whether that happens at the deadline or summer or after that, I just think we're headed there at some point.
Wow. Who would have thought that we'd be talking about maybe we should go back into the days of D'Angelo Russell and Joe Harris and not the Kyrie, Kevin Durant experience? Wow. Who would have thought, man? Who would have thought?
I think probably 50% of the people that watch basketball were like, I don't know if this is going to work. And they were right.
Oh, man. Well, let's get into this matchup, man. Let's break this down a little bit, because like I said, Knicks versus Nets. You talked about it at the top of the show, where you think this is a good matchup because, I guess, both teams, they're both coming from different angles, right? You have a Nets team that's coming from a lot of adversity right now, a lot of adversity up front, a lot of unknowns. It's Kevin Durant. You don't have Kyrie. You're waiting for Ben Simmons to get right. You got an interim head coach right now. There's also controversy of the potential of signing Ime Udoka that's looming over the Nets too. And the Nets are just trying to figure it out. For the Knicks, we're going to our third season. Tom Thibodeau, you know, he's not on the hot seat, but I know his seat's warm, right? They got to see some sort of competent level of play this season, plus a play-in I would expect for Tom Thibodeau after his first year making the 4 seed. Such a bad season, just like such a terrible fall. And then you got Julius Randle, got guys who are trying to make a bounce back. We got the new signing in Jalen Brunson, Isaiah Hartenstein, guys who also got young guys like Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, questioning if they would be getting enough minutes. So far, it looks like it's going to be trending that way based on some injuries and other things to open that up for these players. But, it's a lot. I feel like the Knicks and the Nets both have a lot to prove this season. And this is just a good matchup to see where both teams are at. I also think it's two teams trying to get right and trying to gel. You talk about the Nets where it's Kevin Durant and a bunch of role players, trying to figure it out now that you don't have Kyrie Irving. Same thing for the Knicks. They're just an up and down team. We're not a consistent team yet. I think there's been a lot of injuries with Mitchell Robinson. We don't have Quentin Grimes right now, a lot of rotation changes. So now it's not the same stability that we saw last season in the terms of the same lineups, but guys having to figure out and just reshuffling the lineups right now. And I think this is like a good clash for both these teams just to figure it out. So to get into it, who are your starters right now for the Nets? Because with Kyrie out, who you got right now? And Ben Simmons.
Well, it depends it depends with Ben. I wonder if they bring him off the bench again. They did against Dallas because of a minutes restriction with a knee injury that actually is like kind of really working well for the Nets, which sounds crazy, but they are, by circumstance, they're not playing these Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons front courts that have gone about as well as you can imagine they've gone with Ben not looking like himself. It's the spacing is horrendous. So yeah, I think Simmons will come off the bench. So you're looking at Edmund Sumner, Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, KD, Nick Claxton, which has actually been, as a group, has been really, really efficient. And really any of those, the 4 guys, if you take Sumner out and you put in Cam Thomas, like that group's playing really well too. So in a weird way, because of, it's kind of, you mentioned with the Knicks, like sometimes basketball works like that. There is some addition from some subtraction. So having Simmons in a limited role and actually weirdly not having Kyrie there, things have been simplified in a way where their rotations suddenly make a little more sense. The spacing is just more balanced, and just in general, they know exactly how they're going to play. It's like we're waiting until opponents double KD, and then it's just slash from the second side. And to the credit to the Nets, like they've done a pretty good job of that. Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, both done very well at that. So, the starting lineup is balanced and really good right now. That's where you're going to see the best Nets basketball.
Okay, so for the Knicks, there's been a couple of changes, right? Beginning of the season, it was Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson. Mitch is out with a knee injury. He'll be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days. That was from last week. Quentin Grimes, even though he hasn't been in the rotation at all, he made a surprise appearance against the Philadelphia 76ers and then went back out with another questionable foot injury. We still don't know what it is. According to CP, from who he's heard, I actually can't remember right now. What is it? Oh, come back to me. Whatever. Plantar fasciitis. That's what it is.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Plantar. Took me a minute to figure it out, but it's plantar. So
okay.
It hasn't been officially reported, but that's what we got right now. And then with the rotation change, Fournier has been moved to the bench. So what we worked with last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is what I'm expecting for tomorrow night, we got Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, Julius Randle, Jericho Sims. We had Isaiah Hartenstein in there as a starter against the Boston Celtics, but not great defensively. He gives a lot of effort, but not great defensively. Jericho is almost a carbon copy of Mitchell Robinson. And so when I look at that, when I hear that lineup, what you told me where it's Sumner, Harris, Claxton, O'Neal, and Durant, the 2 matchups that really stick out to me are RJ Barrett against Joe Harris, and then Cam Reddish versus Kevin Durant. So those are my 2 big matchups, 2 key matchups, just because I don't think you're going to want, from a Knicks standpoint, I wouldn't want RJ on Kevin Durant. We saw that last season. It's very difficult. It's a difficult task for anybody to guard Kevin Durant, but I think athletically, lengthwise, it's more of a Cam Reddish thing. And Cam has really been showing out. He's really improved his defense. And I think because of Cam's height, his length, I think he's a better matchup to go against Kevin Durant and just to have him as a defensive specialist. And he's kind of been showing that right now for RJ, putting him back at the 2. It'll be difficult because you got to chase around Joe Harris, because Joe Harris is a good off-ball guy who can just weave in and out of screens, find open spaces. I find that to be a difficult challenge for RJ because Joe Harris can also cut off ball as well. So I'm looking at those matchups, but I think RJ can get the deal done. What do you think about those matchups? And then what do you think the follow-up question is, do you think there are any other key matchups that we'd have to watch out for in this game?
Yeah, I'm just really curious how you guys, because I'm assuming you're going to double KD because that just seems to be the game plan right now. And like, by the way, that's the right game plan. Like you should want to do that. That's what Dallas did down the stretch, and it largely paid off. It was weirdest game yesterday. They fouled KD at the 3-point line. They tried to do the intentional foul, and that's like that game was closer than it should have been. And I thought that Dallas outplayed them down the stretch. So I'm curious about that. I guess I am curious to see what Reddish just looks like because I don't feel like I've watched him a ton as a Knick, like at all. So that I think will be fun for me. But yeah, I think those matchups will be really interesting. In terms of the other side of things, I'm curious who they put on Julius. I wonder if that's the Royce O'Neal matchup. They've done KD before. That's just like a tough matchup for him physically. And then I also am curious to see who they put on Brunson. Is that Sumner? Is that what they're going with? Like point of attack defense is not a strength for the Nets this year at all. And a lot of that comes down to Simmons not looking like himself. They have this strange problem the Nets do where Royce O'Neal is like their best post defender, but he's also like hypothetically their best point of attack defender, even though he's 30, slowed down a little bit. I never felt like point of attack defense was like a strength for him. So, it is kind of, that's a tough ask. Are you going to put him on Brunson? I don't know if I love that matchup. So I think in a weird way, the Nets are not like super well equipped to defend the Knicks just because I do think the Knicks are going to be able to get paint touches on them. And then the Julius thing, if he's playing well, we've seen it before. He's able to pretty much get what he wants against the Nets. So I think that'll be very interesting. The other thing I'm watching for you guys, I guess, just generally is like the spacing in the starting lineup. Randall's shooting 30%.
Took a massive jump from last night, my man. Took a massive because he was shooting about 24% last night after he went ballistic against.
Yeah. So it's like, are you going to get that 2 games in a row? I don't know. Cam is shooting He's shooting 25% from 3. So it's like there's a lot of pressure, I guess, on Brunson and even RJ shooting like 34%. So the floor spacing will be interesting, and I'm curious to see if the Nets are going to really pack the paint in there. I mean, the part of it is just they have a new coach, so I'm learning right now how the Nets are going to play because we're 3 games into it. So this will be a different test for the Nets, very different from their last opponent. Which is just we're running a ton of pick and roll and we're going to space the floor around Luka. This is a very different test for them.
Yeah. So for the Knicks, we're one of the top 3 teams that loves to attack the paint. So you talk about perimeter defense. That's like the Knicks bread and butter between RJ, Brunson, Randall. It's a lot of driving downhill. Knicks are actually 3rd in the league with the amount of drive attempts per game. So that's what they love to do. They like to attack. As of right now, the Knicks like to attack in transition. They like in their sets, it's usually someone trying to get downhill to open up shooting for someone on the perimeter. But then, Jalen Brunson, he can create his own shot. Randall, he is a good isolation scorer once he's placed on the block and given his chance to operate. And RJ is a guy who likes to get downhill. And he's been a little bit more methodical recently in trying to get to his spots. But you talk about 3-point shooting for the Knicks. I mean, look, you have, as of right now, the last 3 games that we've watched the Knicks play, Randall's been shooting 48%, RJ shooting 40%, Toppin shooting 36%. Those are, as of right now, our current best 3-point shooters, just with volume. The last 3 games. Now I'd say Obi's probably our best 3-point shooter right now on season. But he's coming off the bench. Although we have seen some small ball lineup finally. We have seen the Obi Randall pairing since playing against the Philadelphia 76ers Friday night, and it looks like it's going to continue unfortunately due to Mitchell Robinson injury, but that has been working to some degree. So for the Knicks, are they going to be able to keep up their 3-point shooting? They're not necessarily known as a good 3-point shooting team, but they do like to get downhill. And conversely, on the defensive end, Knicks, because of Evan Fournier in the starting lineup, we're not a good perimeter defense. Now it's, in my opinion, taking a step up. So I'm curious to see how this trend goes with the lineup that I told you about, with you having Brunson, Barrett, Reddish, Randall, and now Sims. I think the perimeter defense it's definitely better than what we saw with Fournier out there next to Brunson, just because Fournier is a turnstile on defense. But I think it'll be a little bit stronger if it's for, I don't know, like, would you consider the Nets like a really good 3-point shooting team now without Kyrie Irving? Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think they shot they shot like 34%, I think, last game. I'm gonna look this up right now. I should have had this prep, but no, yes and no. Like, part of it is Joe Harris is not having a good 3-point shooting season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's around 30%, which is like crazy low for him. He's kind of working
Whoa.
his way. Yeah. Well, he's coming off this ankle
Right.
surgery, and it's just like you watch him shoot, and it's weird because he's like doing other things better than he had in the last season. Just getting into the paint more. His finishing has been really good the last 2 games, I'd say, at the rim, which was not a huge strength. It hasn't been a strength of his since the 2019-2020 season. But the 3-point shooting is not there. He's short a lot on his jumpers. Seth Curry, another guy. I mean, Seth looks unplayable right now, and that's just another guy working his way back. Patty Mills is at this point a 13th man. Like those, and that's your floor spacing right now. So it's weird. They are very dependent on if Royce O'Neal's having a good game. Is he making threes? What type of threes is he getting? Is he getting open corner threes like he did against Dallas? Or is this a situation where the Nets are unable to generate anything and he's taking, sidestep threes, which are not good looks for him? He's much better as a stationary guy. So yeah, they could be a really good 3-point shooting team, but I haven't really seen it yet. And a lot of it's just based on a couple of guys being hot. I guess kind of similar to how the Knicks are at the moment.
It sounds like a great matchup, man. This sounds like a great matchup so far, just to see if both these teams are going to get it right and try what they're trying to figure out in this matchup. The last thing I got to touch on, man, is our second unit. Knicks' second unit is one of the better lineups in the league. Last 2 seasons, they were one of the more efficient and potent offenses out there. And we're talking about Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickly, now Evan Fournier, who's in there, and he's taking some time. This will be his 3rd game coming off the bench, so getting used to playing, not with the starters and trying to, I would say, somewhat expand his role, because when he was with the starters, he was really just a 3 and D specialist, but obviously not a lot of defense, a lot of 3. So, and
Love that.
his game is predicated mostly on being a shooter and somewhat of a playmaker like he did in Orlando. So I think he's going to get some playmaking opportunities. We saw that against the Timberwolves where he got some nice assists. He's a better team defender. He got 2 steals yesterday too. Didn't shoot really well, but that's who he is. He's just an inconsistent shooter. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's cold, it's colder than Antarctica, man. That's just how he is. And then you got Obi Toppin, who I told you about, who's our best 3-point shooter, one of our best off-ball guys as well. And you got Isaiah Hartenstein, who's been a nice change of pace instead of having redundant centers who are both rim protectors. Having a guy who can give you some offense and just hustles on defense, it is great. So what do you think about our second units? Because that's who the Knicks are. That's what the Knicks have. We're known. That's been for the last 2 seasons prior, and starting to get into a rhythm right now. That's who the Knicks have had to rely on to get them substantial leads or even a lead in games. What's it looking like for the Nets?
Cam Thomas. That's it. I'm not kidding. I wish I was kidding. Like, all right, so the Nets yesterday, right? They played the Mavericks. They got 19 points out of Cam Thomas, who's playing well, by the way, showing a little bit of growth in terms of his ability to make plays for others. Can still score from 2.5 levels. The 3-point shot's a little hot and cold, but so he's been playing well. Outside of that, They got 3 points from Yuta Watanabe, who sprained his ankle and will not be playing. They got 1 point from Seth Curry, who, yes, it's been a slow progression back. And they got 2 points from Ben Simmons. So we're talking about 5 points outside of Cam Thomas off their bench.
All right.
And 3 of them are not playing because Yuta Watanabe is hurt. So it's been a little bit of a struggle. And outside of that, you've got David Duke Jr., who's second-year player, undrafted. I don't know. I mean, a good David Duke Jr. game is like 12 points, but it really depends. Patty Mills, 0 points. And that's kind of what their bench is. So the Nets, as much as their starting lineup has fallen into place because of, players getting injured, Kyrie not playing there weirdly, I think has helped a little bit just in terms of them having an identity. Simmons working his way back from a knee injury. It also means their depth is just horrendous. Like it's not good. So that's where you guys are gonna stretch this. And I think really the Nets need to have the type of performance that they had against Dallas with their starters, because we know it's like Cam and nothing else off the bench right now.
All right. So should be on paper, it sounds good for the Knicks second unit, but got to see it actually all play out. Nothing's ever guaranteed, especially in the NBA.
No, and Cam had a big performance against the Knicks last year. So who knows? I enjoy watching him, man. Like he's a lot of fun to watch. And he's like the only young player the Nets have. So that's probably it too.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Before we get you out of here, what's your final score prediction for this game?
Oh man. I think, man, I wish I'd looked. I think this is going to be kind of like in the just over 100. We're talking like 104 to 100. I actually kind of think the Nets are going to win. And I just think Durant's playing out of his mind. Like we're in like a nice stretch for the Nets right now where Durant's pretty fresh coming into the year. This is where they're going to pick up a lot of wins, very similar to last year where it was just Durant out there and they picked up wins. And then eventually the regression set in, I guess the toll of the season hit, and that kind of like excited energy of, hey, we're this team, we're trying to find this identity, wears off, but we're still in like the weird, I don't want to call it a honeymoon phase because I don't really know what it's called, but they're just in this like weird excited energy phase where they're going to pick up wins by teams overlooking them and saying, oh, it's just Durant, we just need to throw 2 at him and we're going to be fine. But yeah, I think we're in a good phase right now. So I do think the Nets are going to win, but like, I think this is going to be a really good game and it'll be very close.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be close. I'm with you. That's barely eclipsing the 100 point. I'm going to go with 106, 102 Knicks in this one. I think the Knicks big three have been putting up plus 20 points, all 3 of them in the last 2 games. I think they're starting to get into a groove and find their streak. So I'm going to bank in on that for all 3 of them having another 20 point performance, all 3 of them. And the Knicks are going to get out of here with a 106-102 victory over the Brooklyn Nets. And come on, man, we've seen the last couple of games. We just know that it's always been heartbreakers for the Knicks. I feel like, especially for Julius Randle, I feel like this is time for Julius Randle to be like, all right, man, I got to get one. I got to get one right now. The Nets are just like in disarray. This is prime opportunity. That's how I'm feeling. But Matt, thank you again for coming on and breaking down this game with me. Please let the listeners know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter, Matt Brooks NBA. Everything's there. I do a lot of video work, and amongst other things, regular reporting duties, I guess. No, actually, a lot of non-video work this year because of the season that we've had. But yeah, it's all there. Podcasts, articles, anything else I do. And yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it, man. And thank you once again. Thank you to helping break down, and to Knicks Nation, thank you again for tuning in. As always, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to share these videos. Make sure to share with everyone who you know so that we can get some more eyes on it. All right. We got to keep growing that channel. We're close to 60K. All right. Make sure to help your boys get to that goal. And also, if you can't catch these videos live, you can also find them on all audio listening platforms, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We're all over the place. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another Game of the Week. Yeah.